Hey friends, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Steph. I'm a triathlete, a baker, and an engineer. And this video is going over everything that you need to know about Ironman Ottawa. As someone who was born and raised in Ottawa and lives downtown, I literally live on the bike and run course. I'm so excited about this race. I love living and training in Ottawa. Feel like I have so many tips for this. I'm so happy that Ottawa gets to host an Ironman. So I just wanted to share everything that I know about the city for training, tips for race day, tips for visiting families to make sure everyone has the best time. So I'm going to do a bit of like a course overview, going through the actual course maps, a little bit of tips and tricks for each segment of the swim, bike, run. I'm going to talk about the 2 different transition zones, some tips for that. I also want to share some tips for people who live in Ottawa for training and anyone who wants to come to Ottawa for like a training camp weekend type thing, because there are a lot of really amazing places to train in the city. I also want to share some really good routes for training and also for anyone who's like family or partners are coming to race but aren't racing, because there's so many really good like tough bike rides that would be awesome for a partner to do if they were training for another race but spectating you during the Ironman Ottawa weekend, if that makes sense. And we've got some FAQs answered by the Ironman Ottawa race director as well. So thanks to Pauline for showing up for that. Let's talk about the swim course. The swim is going to be at Britannia Beach. It's in the Ottawa River. It is a river, so there is a current. It's a 2-loop course, so you're going to do 1 loop. I believe there's going to be an Aussie exit, so you get out of the water, and then you run across the beach a little bit, and you get back in and do your 2nd loop. The current is going to be with us on the way out and against us on the way back. Obviously, the strength of the current depends on how fast the river is flowing. That depends on stuff like, has it rained recently? What's the weather been like? But last summer when I was swimming there, it was about a 20-second per 100 difference for me as a 2 minutes per 100 meter swimmer. So it would be, let's say, about 1:45 on the way out and about 2:05 on the way back, minutes per 100 meter. So it's not crazy strong, but it is noticeable. I don't think there's anything in particular that you need to do to prepare for it, just to be aware of it so you don't, check your time halfway through and think you're blasting it and then be fighting it the whole way back and wonder why you got slower. It's probably going to be wetsuit legal. Can't say for sure, but based on historic temperature data, it's going to be wetsuit legal. It's a river, it's pretty big, it's flowing. Even though it's hot in Ottawa in August, the water's always fairly cold. The river has a nice sandy bottom. Not that you'll be able to see it once you get started, but when you're coming into the beach, it's nice sand. There's no rocks to worry about. There's a little bit of seaweed, but it's kind of just in patches, and you're unlikely to run into it, especially when there's that many people swimming. The course is a bit of a skinny triangle, rectangle shape. You kind of start by swimming almost straight north. So if you're someone who breathes on your right side, you're going to be looking into the sun because it's rising in the east. And then when you turn around, you'll be looking away from the sun, so that's nice. So just something to think about. The sun's going to be on your right as you head out, and then on your left as you come back in, but there's 2 loops. The river itself is really big, but Britannia Beach has a bit of a protected bay. It could still get choppy though. My first ever triathlon had the same location. It was a somersault event. It was just a sprint, but there was like 3-foot white caps. It got crazy because it was just a really windy day. That's rare. I've literally only ever seen the water like that the one time. But there could be some swells. It could also be perfectly glass flat. Depends on the weather. So you'll do your 2 loops. Once you come out, it won't be a very long run to transition. I don't think they've officially said exactly where it's going to be yet, but given where it is for all the other triathlons that happen at the same location, it's probably going to be on that big grass lawn. So you're just coming out on sand, running across grass to get to your bike. They'll have wetsuit strippers, wetsuit peelers, who will help you take your wetsuit off if you want, or you can do it yourself. And then you get to your bike, put your wetsuit, your cap and goggles away, put your bike shoes on, grab your bike, make sure you got your nutrition, your helmet, take off. This race is one of those unique ones that has 2 transitions. So the logistics of the 2 transitions. Transition 1 is where you go from swim to bike, and that's going to be at Britannia Beach Park. Transition 2 is where you go from bike to run, and that's going to be at Majors Hill Park downtown. When you pick up your race kit, there's going to be bags in the race kit, and those bags are for the different transition areas. So you're going to have 1 bag for transition 2, and you're going to pack that with all your run stuff and everything that you're going to need for the run. And on the morning of the race, you're gonna go to T1. And you're gonna set up all your stuff at T1 with your bike, your nutrition, and then you're gonna put your stuff for T2. It's gonna be in that bag, and you're gonna hand that bag off to someone, and they're gonna bring it to T2 for you. So you don't have to go to both transitions the morning of the race. You only have to go to the one. So when you come out of the water, you'll have the station that you set up. You'll take off your wetsuit, cap, goggles, put on your bike gear, helmet, grab your bike, and go. And then when you get to T2, you're gonna put all of your bike stuff, shoes, helmet, into another bag, and you're gonna pick up a bag that has all your run gear in it. So there's nothing really for you to set up there. You're just going to have a designated spot to put your bike. You'll grab your run bag and get changed and then go run. Okay, bike course. As of the time that I'm filming this, they're still finalizing the course. But we have what we think it's gonna be, so I'm gonna go with that. It starts at Britannia Beach, and then we're going along the Parkway towards downtown Ottawa, and then we're along Colonel By and back, and then on the Parkway again going east. The thing that's really cool about this course is pretty much all on roads that are actually closed all summer on Saturdays for NCC bike days. Ottawa is like one of the best active cities, so most of the course you can actually ride on a Saturday without having to worry about traffic at all, which is cool. Elevation, there's really not much. Like, there's gonna be a little bit climbing up past Parliament Hill, a little bit on the east end of the Parkway, maybe a little bit over bridges, but there's no major hills at all, other than the finish at Majors Hill Park. But that's just the name of the park. It's not really a hill. It is 3 loops, but partially. So you'll start at Britannia Beach, you go up along the Parkway, and then you go past Parliament, turn up along the canal on Colonel By, and then it looks like we're going to be going all the way along Colonel By, all the way to Hogsback Falls, where there's going to be a U-turn, and then backtrack until you get to downtown, and then we're going to swing right and go east on the Parkway. This part of the Parkway is beautiful. The pavement is really smooth. I like to ride this one a lot in the summer, and you get really nice views of the river too. Go all the way to the end of that Parkway, another U-turn, and then you're going to come back, and then we cross over the Alexander Bridge into Gatineau. On the Gatineau side, just briefly, and then we cross the Portage Bridge, and then we're back on the Kitchissippi Parkway, go out, and then before we get all the way to Britannia, there is going to be a turnaround point. So you don't go all the way back to the start for the start of your second lap. It's going to be partway along the Parkway. And then you do that whole thing again, and you do the whole thing again, and then you come in, instead of crossing over to Gatineau for the last time, you just pop in to T2 at Majors Hill Park. I honestly feel like there's nothing really major to note on the bike course. Again, it's not really hilly. There's only a couple rollers. Currently, the pavement between Britannia and downtown Ottawa is in pretty rough shape. It just gets beat up over the winter with the snowplows and stuff. So we'll see what they'll do about that. Ironman's always good at least marking the potholes and stuff. But we will see. Hopefully they pave it. Maybe they won't. Once you get past Parliament, though, the rest of the roads are really nice. One thing is, because it's along the river, it can be very windy. There could be crosswind coming off the water, headwind or tailwind sweeping down with the river. So be aware of that. It's also pretty exposed, and given that it's Ottawa in August, it's going to be hot. So make sure that you're staying on top of your hydration and your sodium and stuff during the bike ride. It might not feel like you need it as much because you're biking, you're getting that breeze, but you want to stay hydrated, especially if it's a hot sunny day. One thing that I think that's going to be really neat about this is the bike is kind of through the city. A lot of Ironmans and 70.3s are in the middle of nowhere because you need the space. So you're biking through beautiful countryside, but there's never anyone there. This one is like through neighborhoods, through houses. I think the crowd support is going to be unreal, not only on the run, but also on the bike. So I think that's going to be a really neat aspect and something totally unique to Ottawa. Now, for the run. Again, the run course hasn't been finalized. The official run map is here, so let's go over that. I've also mapped it out on Strava just so I can see that elevation profile because that wasn't in the map yet. It's very similar to like Ottawa Race Weekend half marathon. Obviously we're starting in T2, which is at Majors Hill Park, and then it goes up a little hill to get to Wellington. We go down a little bit on Wellington, and then there's a massive downhill as we get down to the river pathway that goes kind of underneath behind Parliament Hill. Beautiful pathway, but my tip is that's a pretty steep downhill right after you just biked 180K. So take that first hill slowly, even though it will be feeling good to be running downhill. You don't want to mash your quads for the next 40 kilometers. Like there's one section that's a 10% grade downhill. And then it's flat along the river, really nice views from down there, and then you climb back up as you hop onto the canal pathway. And then we're on Queen Elizabeth, not the canal pathway, Queen Elizabeth Drive, going kind of all through the city. There's a slight hill once you get around Dow's Lake and we're heading up towards the Arboretum Experimental Farm. It's not too bad, it is a bit long. If you live in Ottawa, I would recommend incorporating that into some of your long runs just to get used to doing it. And then we go through the experimental farm, out the back end, turn around, and just backtrack that with a small loop through the Arboretum. Same loop that we did Ottawa race weekend of last year. Around Dow's Lake, along Queen Elizabeth Drive. This section is going to be so full of fan support. Like, the entire race is going to have great crowd support. If you've ever done Ottawa race weekend, you know how people show up for races like this. So I'm really excited about that. And then the turnaround point, so it's still 2 loops, but it's not 2 loops of the full thing. The turnaround point is at the end of Queen Elizabeth, so you don't do the section along Wellington and right down by Parliament twice at first. You do it to start, then you do the canal bit, and then you turn around at the end of the canal bit, do that again. So you have that hill leading up to the experimental farm again, through the farm, back along the canal, and then as you get to the end of the canal, you're going to go left down Wellington, down that hill again towards the pathway along the river. Kind of the same thing here. I would not recommend hitting it hard because you've just run 40K and your legs are going to be tired and you don't want a quad cramp with only 2 kilometers to go. So just be aware of that. Yes, downhills are free speed, but they also crush the quads. And then you have to climb back up, out from the water, up to the finish line. So there's a pretty steep hill right at about kilometer, it's on my map, it's from kilometer 41 to kilometer 41.6. Pretty tough spot to have a hill. But then you get to come into beautiful Majors Hill Park and finish. I'm excited about this run route. I think it's gonna be great. One of the nice things about it being a 2-loop course is it's very easy to do the whole course as part of a long run without having to run 42K. So I mapped out on Strava as well 1 loop where you get to kind of do the whole thing. Start at T2, do that loop, do the canal out and back, and then go to the finish. And it's 25K. So that's a great long run. Great way to see the course, see what the hills are gonna feel like. Obviously, Queen Elizabeth Drive won't be closed other than on race day, but you can run along the canal path, which is right beside it. I know I'm gonna be doing this for multiple long runs leading up to race day, just to make sure I'm extra prepared. For me, the hardest part of the run is gonna be how hot it's gonna be. It's August. We can almost guarantee it's gonna be between 25 and 30 degrees Celsius. And if it's sunny, this route does not have a lot of shade, so heat's probably gonna be the biggest factor here, not hills. Okay, let's talk about training in Ottawa. This segment's gonna be helpful to anyone who lives in Ottawa and is gonna be training in the city to get ready for the race. Anyone who's planning to visit Ottawa for like a mini training camp, highly recommend. Or partners or family of people who are racing who wanna get in training while they're here to support for the race. Swimming, there's lots of pools in Ottawa. I have a blog post that kind of touches on a bunch of the best pools. I'll make sure to link that. One of the really nice things about the swim being at Britannia Beach is that you can swim there outside of race day. I know there's a lot of Ironman races where the swim course is closed other than on race day, so you can't do like a shakeout swim at the location. Britannia Beach is a public beach. You can swim there all summer. There are boats and other watercraft vehicles, and it can get pretty crowded, especially on the weekends. So I personally don't like to swim there on days where it's really nice out and there's gonna be a lot of people at the beach and like ripping around their jet skis and sailboats. I usually go early mornings or on days when it's just not as nice, so it won't be as busy. But there are lots of other great open water swimming places to go in Ottawa. For example, my favorite is Meech Lake in Gatineau Park. Another favorite is Lac Leamy. Meech Lake and Lac Leamy are both places that are designated by the NCC as open water swimming facilities. So they have buoys, they have markers, they have routes, and they're completely safe to swim, like there's no boats allowed. So those would be my top 2 picks. Britannia is an option if you want to swim on the course, just be aware of your surroundings. And when we go swim there, we tend to stick really tight to the bay and just avoid going out into the bigger part of the water where there's going to be more boats. Another kind of like hidden gem that I would highly recommend, either if you're in Ottawa as part of training or if you're visiting, is the River House. It's actually along the bike course, a bit towards the east end. It's an old rowing club. It's this big, beautiful building on the Ottawa River, and they have a dock with 2 25-meter swim lanes in it. So you're swimming in the river. It's not technically open water swimming though, because you're in a lane. But it's a good opportunity to test out your wetsuit, not in chlorine, and get a feel for the temperature of the water. And it's just a nice place. Like, they have a restaurant, they have really nice docks. It would be good if you have a family, because there's an area where kids can swim. You can just sunbathe. I really like to bike there, swim, and then bike home, because it's right along the pathway. So highly recommend a visit to the River House, whether you're training or not, whether you're racing or not. It's just an awesome place. Ottawa is, in my opinion, and according to a bunch of random websites, one of the best cities in Canada for biking. We have a lot of multi-use pathways that can be biked on. They do usually have a speed limit of 20 kilometers an hour, so they're not ideal if you're looking to like be down on your TT bars and doing a proper rip, but they are really nice for getting around the city or for like easy recovery rides if you're taking out the road bike or you're out with the family, whatever. We also have Gatineau Park just across the river, which is closed to cars most of the time in the summer, making it incredible. There's some really, really good climbs. That's where I'm going to be doing most of my training. It's just so nice not having to think about cars. We also have NCC bike days where they close down 3 of Ottawa's parkways to cars, and it's only open for cyclists and active transit. And that's actually what the bike course is. So you can do the whole bike course on a Saturday in the summer without having cars on the road. There are also lots of other great routes to the east, west, north, south, on like the country roads and stuff. A couple of my favorites are starting in Stittsville. You can bike to Perth and Westport. It's about 90k to get there, turn around, come back. Beautiful flat roads. You can bike through Gatineau Park to Wakefield. This one's a super common route for cyclists. Like on a Saturday, there will be hundreds of cyclists out doing this, so it feels pretty safe. Although there's cars on the road, they give lots of space to the bikers. And there's lots of great coffee shops and bakeries in Wakefield, so it's a good turnaround point. To the south, in Manotick, there's lots of really nice flat roads. That's where I go when I'm trying to work on TT position, because sometimes in Gatineau Park, it can be tough. You're climbing a lot, so you're not really in aero. So I'll go south to Manotick, Barrhaven, towards Brockville for some nice, long, flat stretches. I'll try to compile some of my favorite go-to routes into a little folder, and I'll share that on Strava. Ottawa also has a lot of great gravel routes, another way to avoid being around cars, and just nice to mix up the type of riding that you're doing. So we have the Trans-Canada Trail that cuts through the city. There's another great old rail trail in Chelsea that goes from Chelsea to Wakefield. And there's a bunch of other great gravel routes in the east. Again, I'll try to compile those all together for you. For running, one of the cool things is that you can also run pretty much the entire course because there's a pathway that runs parallel to the roads that we're going to be running on. So I know, me personally, I will be doing the entire course as a long run because it's 2 loops. So if you do just 1 loop of it, that's a perfect long run distance and you can get a recon of the whole course. Ottawa also has lots of different run clubs that are doing different marathon builds. We have Ottawa Race Weekend, which is a good way to practice running on course. And all those multi-use trails are amazing for running. I'll share some of my favorite run routes as well. If you were to come for just 1 training camp weekend, I would say that you absolutely should do a swim at Meech Lake. You should do a Champlain loop, which means you're starting in Gatineau Park at P3. You climb up past Pink Lake, you go towards Champlain Lookout, and then loop back down and come around. If you're looking for a longer ride, I would do that after Champlain. You go and continue on to Wakefield, grab coffee, grab a sweet treat, turn around and come back. That would be like one of the best bikes that you can do. And then I would try to do your long run on course on the next day. As far as where to stay, I feel like it's totally up to you whether you want to stay close to the start line or close to the finish line. There's a lot more options close to the finish line, and I feel like that would be my personal preference, would be closer to the finish line. It's a big city. There are lots of options for where to stay. And here's a pro tip from an Ottawa local. Nordique is a spa that's in Chelsea, which is kind of just across the river. If you're looking for a great way to finish up a training camp weekend or somewhere to relax the day after the race, I would highly recommend checking them out. Massive cold plunges, hot tubs, saunas, great food. Kind of the ideal way to spend your time after a tough training camp or a tough race. Lots of amazing places to eat in Ottawa. It's kind of hard to pick just a few that I would recommend. A few easy, quick favorites. The best bagels you're gonna get are from Kettleman's. They have multiple locations. That's a great thing to stock up on. Easy carbs, and they're delicious. I love the pasta from Dreamland Cafe. It's in Little Italy. Really can't go wrong. Very tasty. Heartbreakers Pizza is some of the best pizza in town if you're the type of person that wants to have pizza the night before a race or before a big ride or run. But honestly, there's so many options. I don't even know how I could begin to break them down. If you have any questions, feel free to message me. It's race weekend. You're wondering where's a safe place for me to swim, bike, run to get ready for the race. Swim, you can swim on course at Britannia Beach or one of the NCC designated open water swim areas like Meech Lake or Lac Limi would be my top recommendations. There's also lots of pools in Ottawa. Another neat option is the NCC River House. It's like a floating dock with lanes in the Ottawa River, so you can get a feel for the temperature of the river. You can wear your wetsuit without worrying about chlorine, but it's not technically open water swimming. For biking, on the Saturday, because the race is Sunday, so on Saturday, pretty much the entire course will be closed to cars as part of the NCC Bike Days program. You can bike along the Kitchissippi Parkway, the Georgia 10 Parkway, or the Colonel By Parkway, and there will be no cars along those roads, so that's really nice for a shakeout the day before the race. As for running, there's pathways that kind of run parallel to the course pretty much for the whole course, so same thing, you can just run along those pathways. If you're here on the Friday or the Thursday or the Wednesday before the race, the roads won't be closed. I would honestly recommend biking into Gatineau Park, just don't hit the hills hard, but it's nice because the road is close to cars at all times in Gatineau Park. There are also lots of great just cycling pathways. Considering you're a couple days out from an Ironman, you're not likely to be pushing massive pace. Just be aware that there's lots of other people on the pathways and you want to respect the speed limits and respect the other pedestrians. So that's my quick summary of Ironman Ottawa. I tried to cover as much as I could, but I also wanted to bring in the big guns to answer some FAQs, so let's get into that. I'm here with Pauline. She's the race director for Ironman Ottawa, and we're doing one of the most Ottawa things ever, and skating on the canal. And then she's going to answer some questions for us about the race.
Hi, I'm Pauline. I'm the race director for Ironman Canada Ottawa, and also for Ironman 5150 and 70.3 Mont Tremblant. I got involved with Ironman in 2012 in Mont Tremblant when they were looking for volunteer captains. I didn't know anything about Ironman or triathlon really, and I got involved as a volunteer, and then they asked me if I wanted to do a little bit more, so that's how I kind of worked on a bike course, run course, logistic, expo, venue, all of the things, and now I'm the race director since 2 years. Ottawa was an obvious reason to be here and to have an Ironman race here. It's a very outdoor city. I'm not a big fan of big city, but Ottawa doesn't feel like a big city. It's you can run forever on the path here, and in the summer they close the road to bike on Sundays. So it's just obvious that it's going to be a great race in a great city.
Is the run going to be on the road or on the pathways?
The run will be on Queen Elizabeth Drive, and it's going to be on the road. So your family and friends will be able to be on the pathway and follow you along.
Can you talk about any plans to bring it into Gatineau Park in future years, or?
So Gatineau Park, it's a question that comes back often. Obviously it's a great park for those who know Gatineau Park. And as our mantra says, anything is possible. So I will just say anything is possible.
What will make Ironman Ottawa stand out compared to other Ironman races? Like in Texas, for example, we have like the Hippie Hollow.
Yes.
Is there anything that you could see that Ottawa will have that's unique to the city?
I mean, the city, its uniqueness, the Parliament Hill, to be able to have an Ironman race, which our longest distance is 180k, within a city, it's amazing. And Parliament Hill is beautiful. The pathway is beautiful, and it's going to be one of the most spectator-friendly races that we have in North America.
Do you think that there's any parts of the city that will have like the biggest spectator turnout, anywhere that's going to be like the most exciting?
The bike and the run, you can be, so obviously on both sides on the pathway. The bike will go on Connell By and the run will be on Queen Elizabeth Drive. So both way you can see your bike and runners, and then obviously in front of the Parliament as well. So there's just going to be a lot of places where your friends and family will be able to see you, and I like to tease about that, but they'll actually ask you to take your time because there's so much that they will be able to see and do while you'll be out there for like your 4 to 6 hours bike and your marathon. So it's just a great city to be in. You know, they can go see museums.
Yeah.
Well, because it's so long for them, for the kids.
Yeah, yeah. And there's so many restaurants, like literally along the whole course.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. Are there any like rules or details that are different than any other Ironman?
Except that we're a bilingual race, maybe.
Cool. Is it going to be wetsuit legal?
That's a question that comes back like even in the middle of the winter. Hopefully, I mean, I know it's hot in the summer, but we never know.
Yeah. There's no way to answer.
Get ready for both.
Is there like one underrated part of the course that people should be most excited about, or like something that people might not expect that they wouldn't think of that they should be excited about?
That you will know when the course is going to be approved.
Okay. I tried to cover kind of everything that you need to know in this video, but it is a lot of information, so I definitely missed some stuff. Happy to make follow-ups and answer more questions. Just drop them in the comments. I cannot wait for Ottawa to get our Ironman. I'm really excited to just spend an entire day doing my favorite thing in my favorite city. And I really hope that this video was helpful because I want everyone to have as much fun as I have training in Ottawa to get ready for this race.